Well, welcome to the Steem Witness Forum. I think this is number three, although I should double check before I say that. I'm very lucky to have a number of guests with me. I have Roland P. I have Andrarchy is here as well. Um, Roland, I took you off of mute. I guess I'm going to put you back on mute briefly here because I could hear your. It sounds like your kids are in the background there, or at least some kids. I don't know if they're yours or not. Let me. I'm going to go move Andrarchy over to the live on air channel. I'm going to move. Here's Luke Stokes. Can go move him as well. We're going to move him to the live on air channel, and there might be a few more that are coming. I'm still expecting that we're going to have Cleop is going to be here, and then there were a couple more guests that were part of that post. Let me go look in the other spot here. But anyways, my name is Agrode, and what I created this thing called the Minnow Support Project. Created this Discord server, which now has 16,000 Steemians that are part of it, and we're known as the Peace, Abundance, and Liberty Network. And within this, we have created a live streaming radio station called MSP Waves. So you are currently listening to MSP Waves. And part of what I'm trying to do is make sure that one of my frustrations, certainly as I've been going through this process over the last 2 years, is knowing what's going on the platform, hearing from people that I thought really have a good understanding of what's going on the platform. And as a new user, it was really hard for me to go get in touch with or even just like hear from some of the thought leaders of the platform. So since making it to the top 20 witness list and having built this thing, it became really important to me to try to help foster communication between the witnesses that are working on lots of different projects, and then all of the users that don't have a witness box but do have some stake in the platform, both because they own some Steem power, but also because they see some future and we want them to see some future here. So what I'd like to do, I think that these things go pretty well when we just hear from Steemit at least a little bit. I know it's been about a month or so since the SMT update that was released on the Steemit blog. So I don't know how much Andrarchy is going to have to just sort of like new things. That's not quite what this is about, but maybe Andrarchy could go give us just to reassure this community that yes, we're still working on HiveMind. Yes, we're still working on communities. Yes, we're still working on SMTs, and just like I don't know. We'll see what he feels comfortable sharing, but hopefully, Andrarchy, are you there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. So Andrarchy is the director of content over at Steemit Inc. And I invited him here. I think it's great when we have a Steemit present or a Steemit Incorporated presence here on these Steem Witness panels. I mean, I know that we try to have some separation between Steemit employees voting on witnesses and Steemit employees actually being witnesses. I don't know if there's a hard line, but it seems like there's a fair amount of separation there. But I love having at least some perspective from inside the office to just sort of share, are you guys excited? Are you all devastated? Are you working hard? Is it all vacation time? Like just what's going on in the office, and how is your new role developing as director of content?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a big challenge, and a lot of my time right now is dedicated to developing a long-term strategy so that we're putting out content on a regular basis that is compelling, that is and that is telling the Steemit story to the world. Part of that also informing existing Steemians about on our end, but that's a difficult balancing act because Steemians want more than anything for the stack to grow and for the user base to grow and for more people to come into this economy over time. So is on figuring out how to tell our story as Steemians, not just at Steemit. What we really think of ourselves as Steem advocates, almost across the board. So like with respect to what we're working on, for example, I can't really talk about anything that isn't happening in a GitHub repo. But that being said, a lot of what we're working on is happening in open GitHub repos. So you can see directly what we're working on. Now, part of what I'll be developing as part of my strategy is a system by which we go through those repos and explain what's happening there in a more accessible way to both Steemians and non-Steemians. Growing, and really growing is another big part of our focus right now. So like last year was about scaling the stack and setting the foundation for being able to scale the stack, because in many ways the ecosystem grew faster than we expected. And so we had to delay the release of certain things and instead focus on scaling. And now I find that what we're one of the big things we're working on is scaling the organization. And I think I mentioned.
Yeah, so I was staring at the at steemd.com just yesterday, looking at. I try to keep track of how many new accounts have been created, and like what the current number of accounts on the platform is, and we just crossed 900,000. My guess is that before we're at the end of March, I'm hopeful that by the end of April, maybe May, we're actually going to have a million different accounts on the platform. I mean, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. There's that. Our sign up process is getting better. We've improved the faucet to some degree. So I fully expect that not only, I mean, I agree with you, but not only that, but that number might even accelerate as our sign up process improves and as the data we're able to gather through the new faucet, not about personal information, obviously, but about where we're losing people in the sign up process. It'll continue to get much better. We've got a number of fixes in the works for that. Not only that, I don't know if everybody knows this, but we're pretty sure that Steem is now processing more transactions every day, not just than Bitcoin and Ethereum combined, but than every other on the planet combined, including BitShares. So Steem is now processing more transactions than every other blockchain combined.
So that's extremely encouraging, right? Like, there's still, I can't. Let's see. I had a conversation recently with somebody that's on a YouTube channel that was starting to say things like Steem's a scam. We've had Tone Vays come out and say Steem's a scam, and to me it's like, we have more interaction on this blockchain than anybody else. We seem to have more active users than anybody else. We seem to have. They would say that it's super heavily censored, and I think like every single person can go put words on this blockchain, and you can't get rid of them. That's like the essence of not censored. Sometimes out in the world we still have kind of a frustrating relationship with some of the other cryptos and some of the other people that are in here, but and I guess that's just to say that I happen to think that the mission that you're on is such a crucial one of trying to tell the story and share some of the benefits of this platform, some of the history of this platform from the user perspective and the people that love this thing, and why we see it as a censorship resistant, really good bastion of free speech. What part of the story do you think that you'll be emphasizing over the coming days as you try to explain what Steem is and what this platform is, and what are you leaning towards in terms of how we should be describing ourselves?
That's a really great question. Well, there are two things I want to say with respect to the kind of point you just made prior to the question. The first one is that what people need to remember is that most other blockchains in the space, they're just right. So most other blockchains that people are talking about, if they're talking smack about us, if they're behind Dash or whatever, and don't get me wrong, I actually like all these projects, but say you're a Dash holder, all you've got is a coin. Your protocol doesn't really do anything. And so the beauty of and putting tokens on them is that anybody can join and anybody can get a stake in them. And the moment you have a stake, you become committed to that blockchain and you become an advocate for it. But if you a blockchain that is only a token, and at this point, Ethereum is effectively only a token too, it's just those ERC20 tokens. So really, it's all about people advocating their token and the blockchain that supports their token. It's not about actually delivering real products and real services. And so the situation is interestingly flipped, where you have people calling us a scam when we're the only real project in the space. To the next much more important point. We went to Token Fest last week or 2 weeks ago, and it blew the experience we had of our minds. We had about 10 people go. We don't usually do conferences, right? Because we don't need that stuff. We don't need to go out there and pitch Steem and convince people to adopt it, right? We've already been in this space for 2 years. We've got lots of users. Our time is consumed with engineering. We're an engineering company. Our engineers work at least 60 hours a week. They work their butts off. Like, that answers the previous question you asked. Like, vacation. I haven't had a vacation in a year, and I'm not one of the engineers. There's no vacation. Everybody's working as hard as they can because we're growing so fast and we're solving such difficult problems that there's just no time. And there's no time to be sending people off to conferences. But we thought that we had this opportunity. We knew the people running this conference. They offered us a really good, a speaking spot. And we thought, we've got smart media tokens coming up, and we really want to start talking to other people in the space about smart media tokens. So let's kind of do this right. And let's see how many team members we can get there. And it wound up being like 8 to 10 people. Harry, our CTO, Justin, our head of DevOps, a lot of people. And we had a booth. So much of the noise that we hear in the space became so apparent what noise it was. I'm not exaggerating. Almost everybody who came up, first of all, we were the most popular booth in the space. Everybody was coming to us because we were the only real project there. The only one, and they would come up and they would be like, "Oh, you guys are Steemit? I love what you guys are doing." And don't get me wrong, I don't think they were talking about us, the company. They were talking about us, the community, and the various projects that are going. And they were just like, "I love what you guys are doing." And it became really clear that everybody who is there, and these are people who are in the blockchain space, don't get me wrong, but they're there in person and they're looking you in the eyes. And it became very clear that everybody there knew that we were the only community with a real scalable product in the Steem blockchain, and the only real product in Steemit.com. And then a growing number of them were aware of things like DTube and DLive and Utopian. And we had the great pleasure of having Diego there with us. And what became clear is that everybody respects what this community has done. They just don't really realize how their application can leverage our stack. And the beauty of smart media tokens, which really became clear here, it's that last little leap developers need to make to understand that they can leverage the scalability of Steem for their application. And so 90% of the booths there had products, allegedly, had tokens, allegedly, but they were all ERC20s, and it was all Ethereum, some undisclosed blockchain. And when I would start talking to them about all of their constraints, which they're more than well aware of, by the way, every developer in the space knows exactly the limitations that they're faced with. And they know about Steemit.com. I'm shocked everybody knows about Steemit in this space, though maybe I'm stating the obvious. But everybody in crypto and blockchain, and now to an ever-increasing degree tech, comes across Steemit in their day-to-day throughout their internet surfing process. And it's just about piecing together these things. They've heard of Steem. They've heard of Steemit. There's new apps, DTube, DLive, Utopian, decent memes, ebooks was a new cool one. They're hearing about all of these things, but what they need is they need to hear the story about how all of these things connect with one another, how Steem is the backbone, how smart media tokens are kind of this connective tissue that enables them to integrate their app while maximizing their monetization and fundraising opportunities. They need to hear the coherent story. They know all of the pieces, but until they hear it in narrative form, until they see it from different angles. And I think with a lot of people, they have the information because we've been around for so long, but they've almost forgotten it. They know about Steemit. They know it's built on Steem. They know you earn Steem with it, but they don't think of it as a protocol that they can tap into. And so honestly, it's an easy sell. At Token Fest, convincing these, we got so many leads after Token Fest because talking to these other projects, like they're reaching out to potential customers. I was actually working the booths because they all need a protocol and a real token that actually works. And so telling the Steem story, it's really an easy sell. We just have to do it, and we have to do it in an organized way. So I'm super excited about it. It's super fun. It's a big challenge to corral all of the resources, but we're making a lot of progress, and I think you'll very soon start to see the fruits of.
And Jarky, can you tell us some from the perspective, like how would you want us describing or talking about the Steem tokens and the smart media tokens that are coming out versus say an ERC20 token? How, I have my own set of language, but I'm more curious, how is Steemit Inc. and you in particular, how do you talk about it, and how were you comparing and contrasting as that was going forward?
That's really a great question, and we haven't really worked out the official language on that. So I can definitely tell you how I talk about them. The first part is that we're trying to believe that Steem is the blockchain of opportunity, that it opens up an infinite number of opportunities to create products and services and businesses and communities. And so the backbone of our story, we think, is something like that Steem is the blockchain of opportunity. And then when we look at, right, and part of that has to do with the scalability. You have an application that interacts with real people in real time, and that generates a lot of transactions. And if you want a blockchain, the Steem blockchain is the only show in town. And the common retort is, but other things are coming. Okay, good luck with those. This is something you can build on right now. It gets more scalable all the time, and it's dedicated to developers who are trying to monetize and fundraise through integrating with the blockchain. And so if you really want to integrate your app with a blockchain, test out the Steem blockchain. It's free. It's open source. There's the dev portal. We're doing a lot of work on the dev portal. You'll be hearing about that soon. We're trying to make the dev portal a lot more user-friendly. It's been getting better over the last year, but it's going to keep getting better, and we're committing resources to that. And so, it's this great freemium blockchain that anybody can start integrating with. And through the beneficiaries feature of the Steem blockchain, you can actually start monetizing your platform in weeks, not months. Everything else, every other protocol is giving you promises and a guaranteed 6 months, a year, 3 years of engineering resources before you even know whether anybody is going to use it. Steem is something you can tap into right now. And typically what happens, and this is where the smart media tokens come into play, which by the way, you know, they're still not ready. We're doing a lot of work on the test net. Smart media tokens, right? And so we have no formal announcement on anything there. But what the way that the conversation goes for us is that benefits of the Steem blockchain. And then what people mention is that they want to do their own things with the token. The critical sticking point psychologically with people with respect to the Steem blockchain, which is actually, I think, a little, but you know, you can't blame people for thinking this, is that they go, yeah, but you know, I'd love to tweak the token. I'd love to ICO the token. I'd love to give some of the tokens to my investors, and I can't do that with Steem. That's where we say, well, that's where smart media tokens come in. Smart media tokens will give you all of those abilities. We've been having this discussion for the last year with developers. The same things come up over and over and over again. We're taking all of those notes, all of that customer feedback, and we're adding that into the smart media tokens. But here's the thing. Well, how can we start playing with smart media tokens? That's when we go start playing with Steem. Start integrating Steem. Look at all of the amazing apps. And this is only something that we could even start saying for the last couple of months, is look at all of the amazing apps out there that are working great, that are growing exponentially. If you look at the growth rates of Utopian and DTube and DLive, they are growing exponentially. And they are monetizing and they are fundraising. And so what we say is using Steem as a test net and start integrating with the blockchain through that, because once smart media tokens launch, it's going to be incredibly trivial to add your SMT to the blockchain. I mean, that is what we're building, a system for making it trivial to create your own Steem-like token on the Steem blockchain that can scale with the Steem blockchain. And so that's how I talk about it. I think that that's where we're heading as a company and as a content department. What do you think? Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on board the smart media token bandwagon basically since I heard about it. And in fact, if I'm so bold, before I really, or right around the time that I started my Witness project, I was working with ModProbe to try to get a clone of Steem working, because I was like, you know what, I want to be able to tweak some of these things. I want to be able to do some of this. I wanted to go have a different distribution, and I wanted to go have, the project was called Meme the News, which is after the series that I've put together. And my goal was to basically create another Steem token and go launch that. And I got it built, and then about a week later, Net announced they're going to do SMTs, and I said, well, why in God's name would I want to go run all of my own infrastructure for this? I might as well just wait until Steem gets this up and running and then go build an SMT off of this, and then try to support people doing memes and news and spreading a narrative that's different than the one that the corporate media puts out there. So I, to some extent, I feel like I predated the SMT cycle by about 1 month. Of trying to go figure out, like, I paid him $1,000 to go get my own token. I got it. And then ultimately I decided this thing would be infinitely easier to do if Steem ran it, the witnesses hosted it, there was a pre-existing network built into this entire thing. And all I had to do was click my own button and get Meme the News going. And then suddenly I had my own SMT. And, I don't know, that sounded a lot better to me than host my own thing, try to steal off however many people I needed, start some new Witness project, get this whole thing going. Like, that sounded like time, money, and effort that I didn't have, whereas clicking a couple buttons to get Meme the News going sounded pretty easy. So
that's exactly right. And some people, I think that a lot of the forward-thinking members of the crypto community and the Steem community we're having lots of similar ideas. I mean, we've got this scalable blockchain. We've got this token. I mean, nobody ever talks about this. This might be another thing I want to talk more about generally. And like, this was my other answer to your smart media tokens question, like, how do you explain smart media tokens specifically? The other answer is because, look, these aren't going to be ready next month. I don't know when they're going to be ready. We're moving as fast as we can on them. We're not yet late with them. We've heard rumors that people think we're late with them. We're not late with them. We're moving very fast with them. But, you know, so right now we want to focus on Steem because they aren't here yet. And the thing is that when people hear about smart media tokens, they're excited about them, that we might actually have to kind of like ease off the throttle, because when people hear about them, they're like, are these going to be ready next week? And we're like, whoa, 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 come on. But so that being said, disclaimer being said, the way I like to talk about Steem and what the properties are of Steem that make smart media tokens so powerful is that they're the only intelligent token. Steem is the only token that moves autonomously, that just flows autonomously. That's what is so compelling about it, is that a crowdsourced, stake-weighted upvote, right? We all know that. But what it means is that the tokens just flow. They just work. They just flow to the most valuable members of the community as determined by the members of the community. So you may have issues with who you think deserves tokens and they don't deserve it and it should be going here. But at the end of the day, it's not any individual who's making that error, fact in error, right? It's something we're doing as a community. And that's something that most people in the space, and let's be honest, most people in the space are new to the space. This is something most people who are old to the space fail to appreciate, is that most members of the space are always new members of the space. They don't really get it, really blockchain people. And so they come in and they go, why don't I just launch my own blockchain? Why don't I just launch my own Steem clone? Why don't I just build my own token? Well, a token that just works. So despite the fact that there's hundreds of other people in the space, there are all of these ERC20 tokens, these are dumb tokens. They don't actually do what the developers claim they do, right? They're saying they're going to develop algorithms, allegedly, that are going to make these tokens do the things they say they're going to do. We're the only ones who have actually created a token that actually does what we say it's going to do. Yes. Are there flaws? Is it perfect? No. It works well enough to support rapid, even exponential growth, not only within Steemit.com, but within the ever-growing number of other applications that are tapping into Steem. And that is the core of smart media tokens. They will have two keys to smart media tokens. The one is that we're looking at the space and assessing what the market wants from these tokens, right? So for example, automated market makers, right? We didn't invent that idea. You know, Bancor really popularized that idea, and it showed that there was a huge demand for automated market makers within a token economy. As we looked at the Bancor protocol, we had theoretical look at it, who's, in my opinion, the best blockchain developer in the world, bar none. Him look at it, have him pick apart the flaws, make it better, integrate that into smart media tokens. Look at ICOs. People want to ICOs. What do they like doing on ICOs? What are the best, what are the most critical characteristics of launching an ICO? Integrate those into smart media tokens. So on the one hand, we're learning from all the other projects out there. It's the beauty of being part of an open source ecosystem. We're integrating all of that incredibly valuable, priceless information into the protocol. And then the other major component is decentralized distribution mechanisms, or proof of brand, or crowdsourced distribution, right? That the ability to empower your users to direct the flow of a certain percentage of your token inflation, outsource token distribution to your users, is an incredibly powerful way of powering your token and ensuring that it actually does what you say you're gonna do. Because if you're building a news platform and the point of the platform is to say anybody can contribute news, we're not going to influence what is popular, what is shown, and what isn't. Then the only way you can really do that, this is what we've learned, this was the strong theory behind Steem, that the only way you can do that is to empower the users to distribute the tokens, to make those decisions for themselves, and then to reward the users who do the most work, not in terms of meaningless computation, but in terms of contributions to the platform. Reward them so that they have an ever-growing amount of influence over the token distributions, and then boom, you have a token that actually works. And as far as my assessment goes with the rest of the blockchain space is that there's an incredible blindness to the importance of empowering users to distribute tokens. And there's a dogmatic religious belief that you want to remove humans from the equation. This was always something, if you go back and you look at my old posts, this was always something that drew me to the Steem blockchain, and why I'm so passionate about it is that you cannot take humans out of the equation. You cannot design algorithms that will guarantee that the best content gets rewarded and the best people gets rewarded unless that algorithm is connected to people and crowdsourcing the decision making. And that is, in my opinion, this is my personal view, is the heart of the Steem blockchain protocol, which is itself the backbone of the smart media tokens protocol.
So what I'd like to do, I've made sure that the witnesses that are on here are they're unmuted. We've gone about 30 minutes, which is roughly what I had in mind for trying to get the conversation with Steem going, or Steemit, the company. I want to invite Dracos, Luke, and Roland to go sort of ask any questions that might come to them that they would like to pose towards Anjarchy.
Yeah, hey, yeah, these characters? Sure.
What's up, Andrew, man? It's good to hear your voice. My biggest question would be, what's your concerns about team burnout? And this was one of my concerns when I talked to people at Steamfest. I loved talking with the devs, and I challenged them. I said, if you don't get a vacation in the next, 6 months, that's a concern. What do you think?
I think it's a valid concern. It is something that is discussed within the team. We are the line, right? Because so many of our developers, and frankly, we are a developer company. Developers like myself, and this is a message I try to continue, is we are in service of the developers. We're an engineering first company. We're trying to build a protocol and an ecosystem, and we love all of these apps. And so, and a lot of our developers and a lot of our team members, they come from the Steem community, especially the ones who wind up being the highest performers and the ones who last the longest at the company to some degree or another, right? Which makes perfect sense, right? You have to have a pretty deep well of knowledge of the protocol in order to function in this team. And so you have people who are really passionate about the protocol and accelerating the development of it. And you don't want to tell them, stop. That being said, as far as I know, most of the people on the team have taken vacations. We're not talking things like 1 to 2 week vacations, but they have taken time off. We've had, it's crazy. We're such a big team now. Everything going on. We have, we've lost a team member. We've had multiple births within the team. Life is going on, and people are taking time, and there's no one cracking the whip here. Ned is not a dictator. The absolute opposite. That is like, I mean, I'm not saying anyone is even saying this, but Ned is not a dictator. Ned is not telling us all what we have to do and saying, no, don't take this weekend off. You know, it is all entirely voluntary. Now that doesn't mean that people don't overwork themselves. So sorry for the long answer. I think it's a legitimate concern. I think it's something that's on all of our radars, and that we do want to make sure it doesn't happen. Satisfying answer. Do you have any suggestions? Should we like force people to take time off, or?
Well, it's funny. It reminds me, like a company I worked at once, my boss had to actually disable VPN access for one of our main guys because like he would go on vacation and he would still log into the system and work. So yeah, when you have passionate people that believe in the system, sometimes you have to take extreme measures to protect them from themselves in essence. And so thank you for your answer. That's great stuff.
Roland, it looked like you had a question as well. Are you self-muted, I believe?
No, not specifically. I was actually laughing.
Okay.
Well,
I have a question.
Sorry, one thing I'll add, and then we'll get to that question, is just that, like I said, you know, we're focusing on growing the team like dramatically. We're hiring, and if you go in, I think into the burger menu on Steemit.com, you can find the listings of things that we're hiring. And I think that hiring process is a big part of alleviating, you know, the workload on a lot of people. And we're doing a lot of work at a very high level. Like our CTO, Harry Schmidt, is doing a lot of work on implementing agile methodology throughout the organization. And he just brought on actually a very, very, very experienced project manager, I think is his title. And I think this organizational stuff and this growth-oriented stuff is what will enable people to take more time off, because so many people right now, or up until very recently, were mission critical. People like Michael Vandenberg, people like Justin, like these are people who there are times when they are 100% necessary, and that's what we need to move away from, and that's what we are moving away from.
Speaking of scalability, one of the things that I've noted is that the amount of RAM required to run like a full RPC node keeps going up. Like the Minnow Support project through Follow BTC News and Crimson Clad, they've taken the lead on putting together an RPC node, and we currently are running a 512 gigabyte of RAM server because some of the 256s have died. I know that some of the other witnesses, in particular Gandalf the Grey or GTG, and I believe that Smooth is running one too at a lower level, but some of these seem like some mega resource hogs. As we start getting into SMTs and growing the network, is that on the radar of the team? Are you guys addressing that? How do you think we're going to be able to scale as we go from 1 million users, which should be in the next month or two, I would imagine, to going to 2 million plus, and then having all these SMTs? The chain's going to get pretty big. How do you think we're going to go handle that from just a system architecture or system hardware point of view?
It is 100% on our radar, and there are two answers to that question. We're actually probably going to be putting out an update on this very soon. It is slightly outside my realm of expertise, but the two answers essentially come down to, on the one hand, the size of the nodes is there are a couple of misunderstandings out there with respect to what has to be run in RAM and what can also be run in a solid state drive or an NVMe drive. And then the other part of the question is what we are also doing to alleviate future scaling issues. But yeah, as these are outside of my realm of expertise, I can't say much more other than there is this ability to not everything has to be run in RAM. And we believe that some of the issues that people believe they are experiencing is due to the fact that we haven't, I guess, communicated as well what does and doesn't have to be run in RAM. And so, but most importantly, we will have an update on this very, very soon that will answer those questions. It's on our radar. We have very good reasons for thinking that this is an overblown concern, and we hope to elucidate that point in a very soon piece of post.
Okay. Dracos, do you have any questions, or Roland or Luke?
Yes, I had another. I was curious.
Oh, you just cut out.
Media tokens will be introduced. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay,
Smart
sorry,
media tokens will be introduced.
When they will be introduced, Andragi, do you see Steemit and its product and its marketing of its product move towards a different direction? Because obviously you want to have external entities starting to use the smart media token features, and how do you see your own job in that you are not only talking towards the original Steem community, but seeing this, it's not really like a split, but it's a new feature. How do you see this?
Yeah, well, as an advocate for Steem, for the Steem stack, back to smart media tokens, I mean, and I love smart media tokens. I've always, the moment I first heard the idea, I was like, yes, of course. It'll launch their own Steem-like tokens. I'm in. But the way I see it, the way I think the rest of us see it, most people on the team are just too busy to actually have these conversations about it. But is that what they do is that they expand the utility of the Steem blockchain. At the end of the day, it does all come back and to the Steem community. And I think it's really useful to look at other apps like DTube and DLive. I'm sorry to leave out apps. Every app that integrates Steem safely and securely and manages private keys using Steem Connect or method, you know, deserves equal treatment from me and from us. But if you think about like DTube and DLive, right? These are two apps that are experiencing rapid growth. Growth is from Steemians. And I think that this is actually one of the most undervalued aspects of the Steem blockchain protocol and smart media tokens, which are really just an extension. Like you said, it's just a feature of the Steem blockchain. Is that the hardest parts of building an application, building a community, or building a business is achieving a critical mass of users. And so what the Steem blockchain offers, in addition to like a magical stack, you know, with truly exceptional properties that no other stack has, user base. It has a turnkey user base. So the reason why DLive and DTube are growing so fast isn't because they're attracting attention from the outside world, or although they are, it's because they can rapidly tap into Steem users. And those Steem users get to be early adopters into those platforms. And once those platforms launch smart media tokens to Steem users, or Steem users will just start using them first. So they'll get the first batch of those crowdsourced distributed tokens, or the proof of brain tokens. So they'll be the early stakeholders in all of these apps, and they'll be part of the bootstrapping process of this ecosystem of apps that is emerging and will probably accelerate over time. And so that's really how I think we're orienting ourselves, is that our job is to accelerate the development of the Steem blockchain protocol. Smart media tokens are a part of that. A critical component for growing the ecosystem, growing this economy, growing the number of Steem users, is making sure that they have as many opportunities as possible. This is why we're thinking of it in terms of a blockchain of opportunity, is because if you like making videos, Steemit.com probably isn't the best interface for you. It is great. if you're a gamer who loves live streaming your stuff to your users, then neither DTube nor Steemit.com is probably going to be right for you. And so dlive.io might be good for you. You're an author, dbooks.org. And so the more of these apps that come online, the more utility and the more value the Steem blockchain actually acquires. And because that's what we really care about, that's what we really love, that's the thing that unites all of us, it works in everybody's benefit. Now, the way we see Steemit.com, I think, the way I look at it is that it's this vital ingredient. First of all, it sucks in new users. It helps accelerate the building of the Steem user base so that all those other apps can tap into this turnkey user base. And then on the other hand, it gives our developers just priceless information about what other developers in the space need from the stack. Developing an application that's scaling rapidly, that's consuming resources rapidly, we learn firsthand what developers are going to need as their app scales. And so we're a year ahead of DTube. So we know all the problems that they're going to face. We know everything that needs to be done. And so it provides that incredibly valuable insight. But it is all about Steem, all about the Steem users at the end of the day.
Dracos, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, it was related to the scalability issues on which you touched on yourself. I'm still not sure that that Steemit is ready to take that leap into the SMT realm because the scalability issue is not. I don't know if it's gonna be fixed soon or late. The RAM keeps on increasing, the RAM usage, disk usage too. So what kind of steps is Steemit taking to make sure that we're ready to scale with the upcoming SMTs? And also not to forget that the increase in the user base keeps going up. The bandwidth limitation has hit us many times. So I'm not very optimistic about SMTs. In my view, we should take a pause from developing all these extra features and focus on fixing the code to make it scalable before going on these ventures.
Is that a question for me, or?
It's a question and a comment at the same time.
Well, I already answered that question. We have a post coming up that's going to explain from a technical perspective the issue of scalability. I'm not an engineer, and I can't make. I don't have the knowledge to do it. All I can tell you is that Michael Vandenberg is one of the smartest people I've ever met. Theoretical, Tim Fisenko. I work with some of the smartest people in the world who know the Steem blockchain better than anybody else in the world. They know blockchain better than anyone else in the world. They understand the scalability issues. They understand the computational issues. I'm not saying there are no difficult tasks ahead of us, but I've been hearing people say that is an issue. We agree that scalability is an issue. We have various projects in the works designed to increase the scalability of Steem at all times. I appreciate your perspective that you think that we should pause, that you think that you understand the business logic of this organization better than the people in the organization do. That's not the decision we're going to make. That's not the opinion that we have. And that's not what the information we have access to. We're not saying that everybody should launch.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying that in my own opinion, that's how it should be. I don't know what you guys have. You guys must have other factors and considerations to make your decisions. But in my view, the scalability issue should be a top priority.
It is a top priority.
Good.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see a post in the not too distant future that can outline some of what Andrake was just mentioning, because it does sound promising.
We have a number of things. I mean, the RAM versus SSD component is just one part. AppBase is another part, and HiveMind is another part. I'm just not an engineer. These aren't my areas of expertise.
Yeah.
We have a HiveMind update that should be coming out pretty soon too. But you can go and look at the HiveMind repo for yourself.
Yeah, actually, Anjarki, that's one thing I'd like to go sit down and do with you at another point is try to figure out, can we sit down with GitHub in front of us and just try to walk through some of the major developments that we should be talking about that are open and online that, that are showing the progress.
I feel like somebody like Luke would be great for something like that. I mean, I certainly would be terrible at it because I'm not an engineer. I actually would be useless there, and I would look very stupid the whole time, which is not my favorite thing to do. It's an interesting idea, but I'd rather have somebody like Luke who's an expert in that stuff.
Then maybe you could help connect us with one of the devs that is back there for Steemit, and then I'm not a mega programmer, and I actually don't mind looking stupid at times. So maybe I can sit down with Luke, and we can sit down with a dev and try to have a conversation around, what are these different projects? What do these milestones represent? How far along is this? What's still left to go on some of the major developments? And I think that would ease a lot of community concerns. In part, it's a ton of excitement around all of these opportunities and everything that this blockchain just really has so much freaking potential. And then we also have concerns, and a lot of people
we agree. And the excitement over what we're doing is awesome. I'm not going to suggest, like Tim, who's working on HiveMind, or Theoretical, who's working on SMTs, that they take their time building these mission critical pieces of software to do that. Like you guys can't come at us and say there's a burnout risk and then say do all of this stuff. I mean, look, I'm coming here on Saturday morning, right? You guys realize that this is extra time out of my work schedule. We have huge constraints on us. And I understand that everybody wants to gain deeper insights, but what other blockchain has accomplished what we've accomplished? What other stack is as scalable as us? I understand that people within the ecosystem are very focused on what we're doing, but I'm sorry, I don't actually want to pour gasoline on that fire. We're the most scalable blockchain in the world. We process more transactions every day than every other blockchain combined. Like, I understand that people think we're going to hit a brick wall, but credit for being able to continuously scale this massive blockchain, and that we actually, just use the apps, like enjoy the apps, enjoy the experience, enjoy the community. Like, I think, I'm sorry if I sound like a dick, but I kind of want to move away from this obsession with what we're doing. Boy, what is there? Like, sorry.
I hear you so well. I mean, I'm smiling here, Andrew, because I've been trying to champion an aspect, I think, of what you've just saying for a while. But I've been on vacation for a couple of weeks, and I saw this tension building, and even before, I mean, Tim was mentioning, hey, somebody could go into HiveMind, check out the GitHub, and do a full report on it. And I'm like, man, he's right. I need to do that. He messaged me about that. You're exactly right. The witnesses here need to step up and take some of this burden. This is not all on Steemit Incorporated. We're being paid to do things like this, and those who have development abilities can jump in and do that. I think one of the challenges is just looking at a GitHub repo is like tactics. It's just individual, you're stuck in the weeds. And I think we also need a strategic overview. Now, I don't think that necessarily has to come directly from a dev. I think that can come from you as well. And I think that's part of what I'm going to be trying to do, hopefully this next week, is really diving in to say, okay, what strategic high-level concepts can I glean from these very specific individual commits? And if that can be done, hopefully I can demonstrate how it can be done in a way that more than just me and anyone can do it who has some technical capacity. And because I agree, I don't think this is all on you. I think we do need to celebrate what has been accomplished already. This is an amazing thing. It's like if we're just continually hating on things, if it's never good enough, we're never going to be satisfied. That's not productive for the community.
Just to kind of answer the question, like I am working with the developers on their timeline to provide updates to the community. Like I have content in the pipeline that's in their voices, that is them communicating to the Steem users. But that I think is going to be the best I can do, because they are so busy and what they're working on is so critical that we do want to communicate more with the community, and we do want to make them feel like they understand better what we're doing. It's just gonna. I think it's just gonna have to be through the content strategy, and I'm gonna do my best with that, and finding the time and working the developers to make it as easy as possible for them to provide these updates without taking away from them solving those scalability issues that Dracos referred to.
Yeah, I don't.
Unfortunately, I got to run now. Is there any last minute things you want to ask?
No, I would say thank you. I mean, in terms of just reporting of how things are going and developments are made, I don't think it matters exactly how it's done so much as that the community has some sense. I mean, I still feel like, despite you guys seeming to get better at this, I still feel like there's a bit of a black box around what's happening. So the more that you're able to let us know, not just the witnesses, but this entire community, what developments are happening and the progress, not just in a GitHub repo, but sort of explained to the layperson, that sounds promising. And whether that's done with me and Luke, or whether that's just done internally through Steemit blog, I don't think it really matters all that much. But more important than that is that I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know that the Steemit guys are working hard. I've certainly been in my share of startups, and I appreciate the time. I appreciate the effort, and I think this was a good discussion. So thank you for being a part of it.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for putting this together, and thanks for everything you do for the community with the Minnow Support Project. It's really amazing. I really appreciate you having me on here. I'm sorry if I sounded a little.
You sounded great.
Nope. I agree. That the black box thing has to go, and that really hope that the work that I'm going to be doing over the next however long helps to alleviate that issue, because I fundamentally agree with everything that you said.
All right. Yeah. Look, I don't mean to criticize. I appreciate you being here, and I feel like this is a productive conversation, and I think it helps this community, and I appreciate you being a part of it.
And I appreciate all the feedback from everyone, from Dracos, from Luke, we didn't hear from Roland, but it was good to hear his voice even briefly.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thanks, Antarchy. All right, so
I feel it really comes because of the choice to be an open company. Then you have these kinds of matters at hand that people want to hear more and more. But yeah, I feel Steemit is already almost totally open. They're just not saying how much they pay to X and Y, but even that you can see in a certain degree when you see Steemit 2 account paying certain amounts of money. I mean, the company is super transparent in my opinion. If you compare it, for example, to Facebook or whatever, they're working people, or Google, people working on secret projects, and all of a sudden they launch something, or Apple, for example. I mean, this comes with being so open. And then you have also, of course, if you announce something, people get super excited about it, and then you have to wait. It's like saying for Christmas you're gonna get PlayStation 6, and then it's only Easter, and you still have to wait until Christmas until you get those gifts. But still, yeah.
Have a good one. Yeah, great points.
All right, so let me go switch gears a bit. We spent the first hour of this just sort of talking mostly about Steemit and sort of where Steemit development is, and I feel like that does a nice job of informing the rest of these discussions and just sort of what folks are working on. I should have done this earlier, because I've seen in chat a couple times that people can't identify voices and know who's speaking. So I guess I should just start with, I'm Aggroed. I'm currently witness number 15. I'm the founder of the Discord channel that you're in, which is the Peace, Abundance, and Liberty Network. I created this thing called the Minnow Support Project, which now this entire entity has something like 16,000 Steemians in it, and and it is a sort of networking hub and a place to go, like an incubator for projects. We've seen a whole bunch of projects come out of this space where they connect here, grow, start their own Discord, start their own project, and that's happened a number of times. So I'm proud to say that I feel like I've built the largest, or I founded the largest community that's in the ecosystem, put together a really good team, and we've been operating for quite some time, around 8 months now or so. So that's who I am. Dracos, can you just say your voice or let us hear your voice and sort of give a brief introduction to who you are?
Yeah, this is I'm Dracos. I'm a witness. I've been witnessing for over 8 months now. Uh, I I'm a amateur programmer, if you want to call it that, but I can get around uh, many languages, JavaScript, Delphi, and so forth. Um, I'm mainly a helper on Steam Chat. I provide help for support for newbies with the diverse problems, sign-up problems. I also helped a lot of witnesses set up their boxes and their machines, their servers. I developed a website called Steemian.info, which is a concise website that brings uh, various informations about the Steem blockchain. And I also coded some tools on that website so people can use, like the witness page, uh, and and I also wrote some private pages in order to mainstream the processing of stock accounts on Steam Chat, because that's the main problem that we encounter with onboarding is stock accounts. So it's something me and Tim Cliff work with every day, and we relay the problematic cases to Steemit, and they can look into it and review what can be approved and disapproved. So these are my main tasks as a witness that I'm doing right now.
Luke Stokes, do you want to share your voice and share some of what you work on as a witness?
Sure. My name is Luke Stokes. I think I'm number 12 right now. And kind of my hope to bring value to the ecosystem, as Andraki was already talking about, is working directly with the Steemit company and also the community as an active witness who hopefully explains complicated things in simple terms. So I did understandingblockchainfreedom.com, some videos I put together trying to explain cryptocurrency in general. I also try to explain Steem and Steemit and why they're different and why they're important. And really just one of the things that I work hard at, I have over 11,000 comments and posts, to be very engaged and to know what the community wants to understand better, what they're confused about, helping them understand these complicated things. And I've been in the blockchain space for more than 5 years now. So it's something I've learned about. I started a company and did that for about 10 years called foxycart.com, which is an e-commerce platform. And I recently sold that so that I could focus more full time on blockchain related projects and helping the Steem community. So my hope again is to be an available witness who's engaged in the community. A lot of the witnesses are kind of like Andraki was saying, they're head down working on really important projects, and so they don't have as much time to kind of pop up and engage with the community. Whereas that's something that's really important and I think really needed. And so that's something I'm trying to do to bring value to what's going on here.
Roland, do you want to share your voice and tell us what you've been working on?
Good afternoon, peoples, or at least it's afternoon here in Amsterdam. My name is Roland. I'm currently number 3 on the witness list. I've been a witness for 1.5 years now, and I'm the initiator and organizer of Steemfest, where many of you I've seen in real life, which was really cool. Working on the next edition, obviously, but it will be most probably again in November. Next to Steemfest, I fill my time with, on one hand, still some fiat work, developing mobile apps, and on the other, working on a lot of
You lost you for a second. Say that
Oh,
again.
sorry. Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of you said you do the mobile apps and then also spend your time on, and then you cut out.
On some blockchain related projects, I did quite some Steem apps which were recently all updated, as some had some issues, and I would recommend you to check them out via the recently introduced new official Steem home base for projects about running on the Steem blockchain, called Steem Projects by Noisy. Steemprojects.com, I think, /user or /author /Roland P. You can find all the projects, even some I had forgotten about, like Steem Fighter, which is a cool game. It's like a Street Fighter game, and then you fight with your Steem power against another opponent chosen from the blockchain. Depending on how much Steem power you have, easier or more difficult it will get to destroy your opponent. Yeah, that's in brief what I am about. And unfortunately, I'm on a mobile connection as I had to run my house, so therefore the connection sometimes drops. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, we'll live. Hey, Luke, you recently went down to Puerto Rico. Do you want to share some of that experience with this group and just sort of, what was the reception to Steem where you were at, and how is the sort of a crypto haven that seems to be building up in Puerto Rico? How's that going, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was amazing. I was at Blockchain Unbound, and unfortunately, I lost my voice about halfway through. I got laryngitis halfway through the conference, which was a bummer. But the connections I had and the people I talked to, when they hear about on-chain governance, they immediately get it. They just say, "Oh, yes, this is the problem that has plagued the entire blockchain space since the beginning, and we've seen it with contentious hard forks in Bitcoin. We've seen it with the block size debate." And so when I describe to people how things go, they just immediately get excited. I mean, it was funny, just, out getting a beer at the bar or getting some food, I would all of a sudden have these like little mini conference sessions, whatever, like a surrounding a group of people would just come and start listening. Cause like Andrew was saying, everybody's interested in knowing more about Steem and Steemit. And so I would just kind of just explain to people what was going on. I connected with one guy who, through the course of conversation, he was like, "We want to hire you as an advisor because you get what's going on here." And there was some fun discussions about the Steem blockchain dollar as well. One of the guys got highlighted from stage. They pointed someone out and said, "Hey, there's an expert on stable tokens." And I was like, "Oh, sweet, I should go talk to that guy." And that day at lunch, he was right next to me. So I went and started talking to him, and it was funny that I ended up knowing more about stable tokens than he did, and he just got highlighted from the stage, which was really funny. But I was explaining to him how BitUSD works and how the Steem blockchain dollar works, and it was a really amazing conversation, because I just think, again, it's an example of what we're doing. A lot of people just don't even know about it, and they're considered experts. There was another guy up on stage who had a slide that actually claimed Ethereum was the most used blockchain on the planet. And I was just sitting there just like killing myself. I'm like, are you serious? It did no mention of BitShares, no mention of Steem. I was like, has this guy ever even heard of delegated proof of stake? So of course I tweeted at him and it was like, hey, I sent him a link to blocktivity.info and got no response. But it was just one of those examples, again, where we're doing amazing, incredible stuff, and there are a lot of people that recognize that and really appreciate it, but there's also a number of people who just have no idea what's going on. And again, the meme about, well, Steemit was ninja mined, or it's not a real blockchain because it's not proof of work, like Tom Bays was saying in his video yesterday, all that kind of stuff. It's just a matter of us getting out there and saying, here's the facts, here's what's actually going on, and helping people just get past their own ignorance. This is one of the most productive blockchains. It is one of the most decentralized systems. And that's another great conversation where people say, oh, it's centralized. I say, okay, in one hand, I can describe the number of mining pools that manage the Bitcoin blockchain. We have 20 independent witnesses here, and with 100 backups at least. So when I just give people the facts, you can just see their eyes light up. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. And so I had a great opportunity to actually check out Brock Pierce's little house, where he's got this whole amazing monastery from the 1600s, and he's building this incredible community. I was able to connect with and actually speak at an event there. There were hundreds of people there and just talk about Steem. And it's incredible what's going on in Puerto Rico. I'm seriously considering moving with my 3 kids and my wife to that location because it's just so amazing. There are people that are excited about cryptocurrency. They're excited about blockchain and what it can do for their community. Every single Uber driver I talked to was like, yes, I want this. This is amazing. So it's an exciting time. If you get a chance, I would highly recommend getting out there, connect with Virtual Growth, connect with the Cybercode twins. There are people like them that are kind of behind the scenes, and they're both on Steemit too, but they're behind the scenes organizing some incredible events that their communities in Puerto Rico are fully engaging. There's another thing going on later next month as well. So it's some really, really cool stuff. And again, I just think that what we can all do as individual Steemit and Steem participants is just get the information out there, help with the communication, help people understand what's actually going on. You don't have to be a shill. You don't have to, but just combat the FUD. Another great example of that was just recently, there's an article going around about cartels involved in the Bitcoin manipulation of the markets. And so I just did a whole post the other day, just a couple of days ago on that, or yesterday, whatever day it was, and then tweeted at him. And they've modified the argument, and they removed some of their FUD-based statements because of my Steemit post. And then they joined Steemit as well, and they took their whole article and they posted it on Steemit. So that's the kind of stuff that any of us can do. If you see FUD out there, you see stuff that's not accurate, correct it, write a Steemit post, let them know about it on social media, and you can actually spread some truth.
Yeah, I did that pretty recently. We'll see how well it's received. I did my best to try to represent this community. I mean, I think one of the concerns that was brought up was that, hey, there are only 20 witnesses. It's not, and then to like stop bad actors, you only need to get collusion between 14 people to go get a hard fork. You need 17. It's hard to, I don't have this conversation every single day. I'm immersed with people that have generally strong believers in Steem rather than people that still have like some vitriol or some people that get frustrated by this blockchain. So I don't always have like the best language on hand. But I did my best to try to combat some of these things. And, to me, there are issues with the distribution. I've been sharing that from the very beginning. Although my own exploration of where did this horrible distribution come from, the ninja mine that's been mentioned before, I used to be really angry about that thing when I didn't understand it quite as much as I feel like I do now. And I just thought, wow, these guys were so selfish and what a bunch of bastards. How could they let this thing happen? And to me, I actually think it was sort of a clever workaround to ICO regulations that currently look like they're going to go bust the chops of a lot of these other tokens and a lot of these other projects where they, every time you do an ICO, that's like a security release. And if you have an unregistered security, that could be pretty dangerous, both from a liability and financial liability or even jail time. So the fact that we did this whole thing through mining, which doesn't have that same set of regulations that's attached to it, I actually think was a pretty clever workaround to basically getting a token into the world that meets the legal definitions and the standards, but doesn't carry the liability. The consequence of that is that we have a warped distribution. And at the end of the day, as sort of an anarchist libertarian looking at this, I think, wow, if these companies could go function without some big brother telling them exactly how and threatening them and putting all these fines and whatnot in there, it wouldn't have been necessary. But this is that whole ninja mine that pre-mined the way that they made mining open source and anybody could do it, but they didn't give you enormous amounts of information to help you. It was actually sort of clever. It's had some challenges, but one of the things I was facing was the conversation of, is this a decentralized network? There's too many people or there's too few people with too big of a stake. Tone made the claim in his video that like a couple of whales can completely shut you off the platform. We still have some work to do to show that we are a functioning blockchain, a functioning website, that we're an active community, and that this is not some. It was so ironic to me that they struck me as like, hey, that's the most censorship full place, and it's like, having just been banned off of Facebook 5 or 6 times and having made it here 2 years without that even being an issue, I couldn't quite relate to the same concerns that they were raising. Um, but how do you guys feel about like the distribution that's here? Do you think that there's any real concern about the distribution makes it so that we're actually a centralized blockchain rather than decentralized? How do you guys view this?
Does anyone else want to jump in on that one?
They appear to be hiding, Luke.
I think distribution is a really challenging problem, and I think it's challenging because it gets at some of our core human nature. Like, we have wildly different ambitions as a species, and time is a resource that's not, infinitely abundant, and so we all are going to do different things at different times, and we're all going to have different risk levels that we're comfortable with. And some of those people who took high risk by being early investors or being early miners have more steam than others, and that is a big source of conflict and concern for a lot of people. And I've been directly impacted by it myself negatively, so I get it. I see, like, when you get flagged by a big whale who doesn't like you, it hurts. It's like, oh man, it doesn't feel good. And yet I don't currently have any great solutions. I know a lot of people that come to Steem and they come to Steemit, they within a month or so, they impact that distribution problem. And it's one of the reasons I run the exchange transfer report every week, so that we can look at how those distributions are playing out, and we can actually make decisions about who we support as far as the new rewards production of Steem with our vote based on our perception of that distribution and where we think it should go. And I hear a lot of complaints and frustrations, and people say, well, why aren't the witnesses doing more? Why isn't Steemit doing more? Why don't we fix this? And the challenge is, I have yet to see a really good answer. A lot of people who provide answers, they don't understand complex game theory. They don't understand cyber attacks. They don't understand what went into building this thing and how complex the whole ecosystem is, and the negative consequences of some of their proposed solutions would be far worse than the problem they're describing. And that takes time to understand all that. And again, that's what I feel we should be doing as witnesses and community members, is help people get educated to understand the complexities. And so I try to spend the time writing long paragraph replies to people to help hopefully educate them on the entire system. So the distribution problem is a problem, and we see negative results of it, but it's also one that I don't have a clear solution for. I haven't seen great solutions for. I'm optimistic that smart media tokens with their human oracles will actually give us some examples of how to deal with it, because if the way that works is the oracle can decide who gets to participate in the separate rewards pool of a smart media token. And even if someone wants to buy up the token, the oracle can still say, no, you're not following our constitution, you're not following our guidelines as a community, you don't get to participate. And those oracles get paid by the blockchain to enforce the community agreed upon rules for whoever created that token. So I think we're going to see examples for how we can potentially learn some things and maybe bring them back to the core blockchain. But as it stands right now, it's a challenge. And I think it's really just up to us to hold people's hands through this difficult process to say, why are you really here? Is it just about rewards, or is it about building relationships, building a reputation, having a place to blog that is yours on the blockchain, as opposed to, funding multinational corporations, and advertisers, right? So again, I think we need to celebrate what we have and the benefits of it, while also not being blind to the challenges that we face.
Yeah, I feel like we're on some big spectrum here, right? Like on the one far side, you have Bitcoin, which seems to be every single computer or every single ASIC that's out there now has some voice, some stake that, they're solving the hash. They're looking for tokens, but they are part of that entire blockchain process. And we don't have quite as many. We have far fewer of these computers that are part of this network. And, the challenge in some extent is that now we have, yes, it is more centralized in some respects, and that on the opposite end, we also have block confirmation times that are like, you know that your money gets sent in 3 seconds as opposed to 30 minutes or multiple hours or even a couple days at times. So I feel like there's some compromises that have been made in a delegated proof of stake system that aren't necessarily there in a proof of work system, but there are benefits for those too. Um, but part of the criticism that was being lobbed at me was we're just way too we're too centralized, or and both in terms of um, how hard forks get introduced and how the platform operates, but then also in terms of token distribution. Uh, Luke, I haven't, when I was getting my stats and for like what's the distribution, I was pulling it off of steamwhales.com. I haven't
Yeah,
seen
but
it. I haven't seen it
there is
other.
no point of return. I mean, the blockchain started at a given point, and then the Steam account was getting, yeah. In the beginning, it was so easy to create Steem, or I mean, to mine it, because that was the initial phase of Steemit, right? That you could still mine Steem tokens before hard fork. I don't know, 16, I think. I forgot about it even. I mean, it is the current status, right? Well, the Steam account has a shitload of Steam. It's using it as a faucet. To me, I feel the implementation of delegation, the ability to delegate Steam, it is a move towards distributing that wealth. Or I mean, what would be another way that Steam now? Some people suggest that the Steam account should now distribute all its Steam to all the current users. Is that a fair point? I mean, if you started mining Bitcoin, maybe Luke did it 5 years ago, then you have maybe a shitload of Bitcoins. Should people then give their Bitcoins back? Or I mean, I don't. Well, I don't really get it, that part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of the people that would advocate for like the rich people must give up their funds. I mean, I kind of think at some point that these prices are fluctuating as the prices go up. We saw even some of the big devs that hold large chunks of Steam. A lot of them started selling when Steam was up there at $8 to $10 or whatever. So uh, my thought is that we'll see a better distribution certainly as the prices go back to highs and people are encouraged to go sell their Steam, and maybe they then choose to buy it back. Maybe they just buy their house, or they do something different, or maybe they're driving Lambos. I'm not sure, but um, I think that the biggest thing that we can do to sort of shift distribution at this point is either tweak inflation rates on the platform or just get more users on here. And those new users should be anybody that's sort of active in this community is going to want to hold Steam. They'll be buying this in small chunks over time. And I think that enough people can go counteract having a few whales with a lot, because lots of people will then drive up the price and get it to a point where the whales are willing to sell, and then I think we'll see a better distribution.
Yeah, the distribution challenge, you made a good point about if we just get more users on board. I think, there are some distribution challenges in Bitcoin. There are distribution challenges in almost every chain. And as much as people are frustrated with the EOS ICO, I actually kind of respect what they're doing. A year-long ICO hopefully will help with some of those distribution problems with that token. So I think a lot of these challenges are out there, and really, to me, I try to bring it back to what is the actual harm to real people being caused by these distribution inequalities. That's where the rubber meets the road for me. If we're not talking about real things where the community is harmed by the distribution problem, then it can be seen as just kind of another form of jealousy, where it's like, ooh, why does that person have that and I don't? It's like, well, there are a number of reasons, but it's when people respond just with that being their argument, I sometimes have to question, okay, wait, are we being rational? Are we being logical? Are we thinking about this clearly? Are we just emotionally upset that we're struggling and someone else isn't? And that is another part of the whole discussion. It's like, I do see actual real problems that the distribution causes. I personally would like to see on-chain lockups of the Steemit tokens. If they have very real reasons, and they've said in the past, they're going to use their Steem to promote SMTs in the future. And that may be an excellent strategy for the entire ecosystem, but it's, it is a concern. It is a risk for investors and future people wanting to get involved. So I would actually personally like to see a tweak on the chain where, like, we currently have a savings system where you can lock up Steem and Steem blockchain dollars for 3 days. I would love to see that be parameterized. So you could lock it up, for example, for 6 months or 3 months. And maybe they could take chunks of their Steem and lock it up. Maybe they could make their account a non-voting account, as an example. That's a feature that's on the blockchain. I'm not sure it's fully implemented, but it's there. And the idea that you could make your account non-locking and, locked up, non-voting, and lock up your funds, that way that would really give some confidence to everyone to say, hey, these funds are not going to be used in a malicious way that is against the will of the entire community.
Yeah, so
there's a feature to decline voting rights. That's currently
exactly.
So Clayboy puts in, it's not about rich people give up your money. It's about the fact that the large stake weight accounts dictate where rewards go and can be used to distribute and decentralize the tokens, or it can be used to make their own stake greater. Essentially, if they aren't voting on other people's content, then there's no incentive for new users to join. No users equals no value in the token. So if the rich people don't use their money to empower the end users, then you end up with a situation where there's less than 100 people have accounts worth using on the platform. So I heard that. I heard that loud and clear and felt that the same way. I ended up delegating quite a bit of my Steem power that I've gained on this blockchain. I think I have like 90,000 Steem power, and I think I delegate out 75,000 or more. So I understand that, and I agree with that. But I also think that everybody has a right to sort of interact how they see fit, and it's their Steem, so they get to vote with it. To some extent, if they want to self-vote with it, that is their right. But I have certainly gone to bat trying to get people to not just self-upvote their own comment, but really try to spread the voting power around, in large part to help new users, because I believe that's where our growth is going to come from. That's where the value of this token is going to come from. It's going to come from that 60,000 active user base that we have every single day now, going up higher and higher over time. And I do think that it's going to take rewarding new users and rewarding platform folks. And I think delegation was a step in the right direction, but I wouldn't even know what else to do. We have open markets, delegation. At some point, we'll just need some whales to sell. And I think that to get there, we're going to need higher prices of Steem. The other option is to go change the inflation rate on the platform. So right now the platform inflation is around 9%. There's something like 270 Steem or 270 million Steem. So this coming year we're going to print something like 30 million Steem, and you could change that inflation rate, and that would change the distribution over time. But I guess that's still based off of who owns what Steem, who has what Steem power, and how do they vote. So I don't know, besides convincing each individual whale to delegate to other projects or, spread out some love amongst a lot of posts, I don't know what else to do.
I think an important point to mention here is that if all the whales stop voting, the money still gets distributed. So it's not really all on them to do all the work of making sure everybody gets paid. People get paid regardless. But what does happen is that if they self-vote, then they're increasing their own influence. They're increasing their own stake to further increase their own influence and increase their own stake. And that is something we should all care about. That's another reason I pretty much have, and Agrod, I know you do this as well, pretty much stop self-voting completely. It's more valuable to me to be known in the community as someone who's trying to help others, that I don't need to, extract every single potential bit of profit I can from the blockchain by self-voting. I'd rather increase the signal and decrease the noise. Obviously, I think my content is valuable, or I wouldn't bother posting it. So I don't need to signal to the blockchain to reward me. I can put it out there for other people. And now my Steem, my voting power is so valuable to me to build relationships, to help other people, and for them to reciprocate and say, oh man, Luke, thank you so much, you helped me, that's what I want to use my voting for. So I think a big part of it is just helping people through the initial phase of working hard on content, putting it out there to no followers, and then getting discouraged because your excellent content got ignored. It's like tweeting to no one. Well, obviously it's going to get ignored. And so just educating people about what strategies work. And so a lot of people come to me now. I've got over 10,000 followers. They come to me and say, hey, how did you do this? What works for you? And what's I think so hilarious to me is people don't do what I've done. And I try to explain to them, I don't buy votes. I don't self-upvote. I don't do these things. What I do is I engage in other people's valuable discussions, and when and only when appropriate, I might link to my own content that is relevant. As I've done in the chat here, certain things have come up and I've said, hey, I did a post on that. I would only do that because I think that post is relevant to the conversation and useful to others. And then they get to go and say, yeah, that was useful. Man, I should follow this guy. He seems to, actually be thinking when he's contributing conversationally. This is what good relationships do. So my hope is we can just educate people on how to build good relationships and then be patient. I mean, really, I've been here for almost 2 years now. It takes time. There is no silver bullet. We can't compare our beginnings to other people's middle or end. So it's uncomfortable. It's frustrating. I get all that. I went through that myself. And also I decided to invest. I took some Bitcoin early on and I bought Steem because I wanted to have influence on the blockchain. So I think that's another thing we can tell people. It's like, if you really are serious about this, you put your money where your mouth is, not just with your time and effort as a producer, but also as an investor. And I think all the money that we enjoy, all the rewards, they come because investors. And if we want to be on that level of expectation of how the blockchain needs to serve us, then that's part of it.
I haven't heard, so there are reasons why I would believe that Twitter is scammy. One of them is that it was recently released that they look at what web pages you visited before and after you visited Twitter and actually change their behavior as the program interacts with you as a result of that. So that kind of thing is scammy. But in terms of like new users, I'm not like an extensive Twitter guy, but I don't recall having conversations where you just sign up and then you say, well, Twitter's a scam because 8 million people didn't see my work. And I guess there's something about there being a cryptocurrency tied to this and financial benefit tied to this. But you see that, like I see that all the freaking time of, new users are totally put off because they didn't make $100 on their second, third, and fourth post. I mean, and they say, oh, it's a scam or it's frustrating. But I do like your analogy with Twitter of like, your first tweets barely anybody sees. And I've started a couple Twitter accounts, got them up to a couple hundred people and said, there's no incentive and this is boring. But I do think that it also takes time on Steem to go set up that account and get some followers and get a base and grow that. I guess on the one hand, we want to go shout loudly that Steem is this incredible blockchain and you can do really well, and then simultaneously try to mitigate high-level expectations of new users on the platform that aren't capable or willing to go purchase Steem to get some starting influence to say, it's like starting a new business. This is going to take you time. You're not going to get a Lambo on day one. You're going to have to build time into this. Dracos or Roland, do you want to give any kind of input on a starting experience on here, or what you think? I don't know. How would you address some of the critics that say negative things about this platform? Dracos? Roland?
Oh, somebody's getting killed. It's
Yeah.
not me.
No, those are my kids. My kids are in the background. Sorry about that.
People saying negative stuff about Steemit, can happen, right? I mean, people starting, no, it's true. We were just, I was more reading up on the chat, but it's what Luke says. It was also when I came for the first time to Steemit, I saw this front page with, it looked like Dig or Reddit, but instead of likes, it had dollar signs, and I thought, what the fuck is this? So that was the number one reason why I joined. It's what Luke says. It's the greedy part in us that sees the dollar sign And I don't know. I'm a euro guy, and I still see the dollar, and I think, oh, I need to get the dollars. That was the initial kickstart. For me, it was, at least. And I think for many people out there, it is the starting why you decide to join Steemit. And then if you join it, and then you see, and then you don't get rich overnight. You don't get the Lamborghini overnight. It's not like you get, but you see those front page posts with $500, and you think, wow, if I write my life story up here, and then I get $500 tomorrow. But it's not like that. And yeah, it takes education, and yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same with anything in life. I think it's part being a great writer and part having some luck of being discovered. And currently, actually, there are tools to do so, because I think some people are just using the voting bots. You buy a vote, and if you buy it at the right time, what's the Steam vote bot tracker website,
Yep.
which is a great website if you're into the botting, but it even notifies you whenever is a great time to buy a vote, because you get profit. It says you have a positive return on investment if you buy a vote right now. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's also it's like a scripted greed or something. I don't know how to say, but yeah, that's money is what makes the world go around. And yeah,
Money makes people crazy too.
That's true. That's true too.
So we got about 20 minutes left here. So what I'd like to do is just open up a pretty open-ended question. Are there any major problems on the Steam network or major issues that you think that we should be talking about that we're not now? And I'll present that question to each of you, and then everybody can just give whatever closing statement they'd want. But so those are the two questions that I have left here. What if any issue do you think that we ought to be talking about right now? What's some important thing that needs to be addressed that we're not currently? And then next round it'll be just give some closing thoughts, and what do you think people should leave this discussion thinking about, caring about, sharing, or I try to keep the closing thoughts extremely open to be whatever message you guys want. So what if anything aren't we talking about?
So I would want to kick off because then I can also go downstairs and say hi to some folks here. But what I just would love to see is that maybe some of the negativity surrounding the start also of this conversation was mostly due to the fact that projected upcoming projects or features are not here yet. And yeah, it's also what Andraki said, who said, enjoy what we have at the moment, and see and enjoy the beauty of it. I mean, we are writing posts, communicating with people all over the world. Steem blockchain, nobody can firewall the blockchain, and yeah, it's just a great product. The essence of the Steem blockchain is already great, and of course, it will even be better with the introduction of maybe a dedicated iPhone app. Although the eSteem is already a wonderful iPhone app, and I mean, Steepshot is a great product as well. Every day, new projects pop up, and yeah, smart media tokens and community features will undoubtedly, whenever implemented correctly with the scaling issues taken into consideration, will all be even better. But I mean, I really would love to see that people just enjoy what we have at the moment, and yeah, complaints about not earning, or yeah, for me, yeah, I'm always a little bit devastated about that. And also the drama parts. I hope people stop the dramas. All right.
All right, thank you, Roland. Dracos or Luke, do you guys want to talk about some things that we haven't addressed today that you think we should have?
I think we addressed this scalability issue, but there's something else that I would love to talk about. I think we're running out of time here. It's the consensus, the witness consensus when we hit problems like the PEG, like the bandwidth issues. We failed twice to address those issues and to do something about them because of lack of consensus. Because many witnesses have different ideas, different opinions on the matters, and there wasn't any consensus reached. And while we squabbled and discussed and wasted time, in my opinion, we could have done something to remedy those situations, and nothing was done. So maybe it's something for a next town hall talk we could discuss.
Well, you
So
know, well, I honestly think that's a lot of what these discussions are supposed to be. That, you know, we can have complicated discussions about, you know, simple, not always simple, but things like witness parameters and what those ought to be, and have a discussion about this ecosystem. Um, and, you know, sometimes that's happening in relatively small conversations so that not everybody gets to partake in. And one of the things that I want to do is make it so that those conversations are happening here. Um, you know, from my experience, being a contrarian on some of those and being in the majority on the others, but hearing from the other side, you know, Steem is the land of unintended consequences. And so it's really hard to just you say, all right, we're going to change this thing. We need to change it. And then as soon as you do, you have all these unintended consequences that make it challenging for different reasons. And we've seen that. You could see it from you know, it's hard to talk about chain bloat and the increasing requirements, and then also simultaneously talk about we should increase block size, because those two things are in direct competition. You know, there are different reasons for why you should support the PEG or not support, I guess, the reverse PEG, or converting your SPDs back into Steem and Steem back into SPDs. So that there's concern around that, and I'm not sure that it's an easy, quick answer either way. But very centrally, you know, I think this discussion exists exactly to your point that we need a better way to have communication and let people that are part of this network see and hear the different perspectives. And you know, if hopefully those kinds of things actually input into decision making of where your witness vote should be. That if you feel like, hey, this blockchain is doing great, but we need this one change, that might actually influence who you're going to vote for. And so maybe this discussion leads to changes in the lineup, changes of who's there, and hopefully more important than like the witness voting or the witness list is people become highly informed of different perspectives of very smart people coming at this from different angles. Luke, do you want to share anything that we didn't talk about that maybe we should have?
Yeah, well, if you don't mind, we got a little time left. I was going to share an idea that was introduced to me a little while ago that I think is really important, and one that we could actually be thinking about as a community. And you can go to Wikipedia. I'm going to read a little section of this called Eternal September. The Eternal September, the September that never ended, is Usenet slang for a period beginning in September 1993, the month that internet service provider America Online began offering Usenet access to its many users, overwhelming the existing culture for online forums. The influx in Usenet users was also indirectly caused by aggressive direct mailing campaigns that AOL did. And the idea behind the Eternal September, and I need to do a post on this, is really fascinating, because we talk about the growth we've had now, and I remember talking to Sneak and these different developers at Steamfest, and they're not even thinking about the almost million users we have now. They're thinking about the tens and even hundreds of millions of users we're going to have in the future. And so this is coming. This is part of our future if we succeed. And we're going to have millions of people joining our little tight community here, and they're not going to have a clue what's going on culture-wise. And we're definitely going to run into this Eternal September concept. where we're going to have this influx of all these new people who don't really know what's going on. They don't know about flagging. They don't know about votes. They don't know about anything that's going on. And it's really going to be our job, each and every one of us, that when our friends and our family jump on board, we're gonna have to take them under our wing and say, okay, here's the culture, here's what goes on. We don't do trolling here. This isn't 4chan. We don't do when we make a post and disagree with someone, we have to do it respectfully and rationally, because this is on the blockchain and it will be there forever. And by the way, even if you disagree with someone, you might want to promote their comment and vote them up, because then your rebuttal becomes seen as well. And just teaching people about the culture that Steemit has and what we believe that culture should be and is going to be really important. And I feel like if we don't start thinking about this now, it will overwhelm each and every one of us when we have an influx of millions of users. And so it's something that I thought I'd throw out there and people to be thinking about, as challenging as it is now. And Agrota, I commend you for what you're doing with the Minnow Support project. I mean, that's really what this is mainly all about, is onboarding, helping people figure this stuff out. And so it's something that you've demonstrated a way to do that well. And I think it's something we can all do in our little spheres of influence as we grow those spheres of influence. And once Steem Incorporated starts doing mass marketing, once they do start going to all the conferences and promoting what they've built, oh man, strap in and get ready. It's going to be crazy. So we should be prepared for this. We should be thinking about it. What are we doing now to have content already created that we can link people to help them get on board, help them understand, help them see why this is a different place than every other place they've been to, and why certain things they're used to in other situations don't apply here and new things do. And they have to learn those things if they want to be successful, so they don't get frustrated, because there will be a lot of frustration if they're not going to spend the time to understand. And so that's kind of my big encouragement, is that we all take, I mean, obviously that's what I do as a witness, but I think it's something we can all do in our own different ways. And, it's just a matter of helping people, with their own way of language. I mean, somebody mentioned Bernie in the chat, like I've had many run-ins with him, but in his own way, he's trying to provide value. I think, I don't agree with a lot of the ways he does it, but there are some people that do respect the way he does it. And we're each going to have our own way of communicating, our own style. And if we're going to avoid the eternal September where just our entire culture gets overloaded, we're going to have to think about how to communicate in our own ways to the people that are listening to us, and communicate what the culture is and what we want it to be.
Do you have, so I think that's actually a pretty neat concern to start considering. My first thought is that in order to go keep a culture a certain way, you have to like codify part of it. So I have, in the Minnow Support project, we built in community standards, community guidelines, some general rules. Nothing that I would strikes me as too remarkable. It's just that we actually enforce them and try to keep people interacting pleasantly with one another to the best of our ability. Not to say, in some ways it sometimes feels like we stifle some debate, but hopefully it just feels like we try to allow debate, but in a way that people don't treat each other poorly while disagreeing. But I wouldn't know, this is for one small piece of this. This is a project that we, elected people manage and that we then appoint people to manage. This is like a defined section of this ecosystem. So I can foresee how we can try to preserve some of the culture here, even as more and more people come in. But it's hard for me to imagine outside of the Peace, Abundance, and Liberty Network and this Discord in particular and the Minnow Support Project, how you could keep a culture for across this entire Steem ecosystem. And I do think that we have a good culture here. In fact, there's been many people that have come here and said, this is one of the best internet cultures that they've experienced. And I think that's why many people have come here and chosen to stay here. Do you think that the reward system itself and the sort of flagging bad behavior is enough to go keep that culture? Or do you think that, what else would we as a community need to do to help preserve that?
I think just what you said is perfect. You're doing your expression of that. And that is essentially what all of us should do. Not everyone is going to come to PAL or connect with it. And that's fine. Not everyone needs to. And to me, the culture of the Steem blockchain expressed through Steemit and DTube and DLive and Utopian and whatever else projects get built on top of it, that culture is an emergent property. It's not something that we can just grasp and codify and define and have a clear constitution on. Now, some people, like for example, EOS is doing a constitution. They are trying to set in stone, here's what you need to do to be part of this community. And maybe that's the way forward. I mean, I know smart media tokens essentially will do that with the oracles, but it's not currently something that can be that structured. To me, it's an emergent property. And the best mechanism I know to hopefully influence emergent properties is to just express, each individual express themselves appropriately and effectively for how they want to see the whole emergent ecosystem move. And so I feel like I've been trying to do that. I feel others have done that, and it's not something that we can control. And so I think part of it is just accepting that fact and reality. It's not controllable. It is an emergent property. And the one thing that we can do is to be able to pressure it with our individual influences as best we can. And it's uncomfortable. A lot of people just are not comfortable with that. They're not used to that. They're used to structured schooling. They're used to an authority to tell them what to do. They're used to someone being able to come in and fix things. You know, mom and daddy going to make it all better. And so this is a growth experience for a lot of people to really explore their own power as a human being, to influence a larger picture that's bigger than themselves. And it's an emergent thing, and we have to engage on our individual level to hopefully push it in the right direction. And I'm confident that we can win at that process if we continue to love each other as we love ourselves. And if not, then we deserve to fail, and something better will come along.
All right. Well, let's go do some last thoughts, and then we'll wrap this up. So, Dracos, anything that you want to leave this audience with? Dracos?
Yes, I didn't catch your.
Anything that you would like? This is just a closing thought. Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with, or leave them thinking about?
Well, be good. Don't abuse. Be good. That's all.
All right, Luke. Anything you wanna tack on as sort of a last outro?
Yeah, I would just say continue encouraging your friends, your family, people that are looking for this platform. Encourage them to not only join but stay engaged. Demonstrate for them the value, and eventually, time they're gonna join. Like a fun example for me, there's a trader by the name of Todd Blackburn. He's involved in the 51% crew, and he recently joined Steemit, and he's got a huge following. He's an admin in some of these massive trading groups on Facebook, and he's now on Steemit, and he's asking all these questions, and it's really fun to see someone brand new get introduced to the community, and it reminds me how valuable we have is. So just continue telling people of the value here, helping them get onboarded, even though he's listened to me talk about it for months and months and months, and me and others. He's now engaged, and it's now real to him because he's seeing those upvotes, he's seeing those posts come through. So just stay providing value to people, demonstrate that value, and it is something that people want. It's very contagious. It's very exciting, and we all have a part to play in that.
Well, for me to close, I'll say I'll just keep working on building communities here, whether it's the musicians, the witnesses, the artists, the audiences, I don't know. There's lots of creative endeavors on here. There's programmers, and mostly focusing on the mission of the Minnow Support Project, which is to spread the values of peace, abundance, and liberty, to help grow the Steem ecosystem and to train and retain new members on the platform. So my plan is to just keep doing what we're doing because I think it's working. We have 16,000 users in here. We're going to cross the million user or million account line for Steem in the not too distant future. And I continue to have a lot of positive thoughts about this ecosystem, where it's heading, and what the pretty miraculous benefits will be as we get communities and SMTs included as well. So I'm looking forward to growing this ecosystem with you guys, and who knows, we'll all have Steem labeled Lambos in the not too distant future. So like that.
Oh, and happy Easter to everybody.
And happy Easter to everyone as well. All right, guys. Well, that's what I got for you. I don't think there's a show that immediately follows this. If there's somebody who wants to go do some pirate radio now, they would be welcome to do so. But I'm going to go cut my feed. You've been listening to MSP Waves Radio. It is 12:55 or 12:56 on March 31st. It's been a pleasure to have everybody. Thank you to Andrarchy. Thank you to the other witnesses that joined us. There are some witnesses that are also in the chat here. And then thank you to the many audience members that are listening both live and will listen to the recording of this, which I'll put out shortly. Appreciate you guys being here. And I don't know, happy steaming.